You are listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos.
How you guys doing?
Bud? Hey.
We're going to do that every week, aren't we?
I love it. I almost time it. I'm like, is he going to talk? I'm going to go ahead and cut him right off.
That's all right.
Yeah. So how are you?
I'm good, man. The sun's shining. I'm feeling pretty good about what we've done in the last week and what we talked about last week. And I'm excited to hear what you've been up to.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy down here this weekend. Yesterday we just was like, we're going to have a crazy storm out of nowhere. I was driving up to work because I forgot something that I needed for this podcast. And I was on 131 North and just like thought I went into purgatory. Mm-hmm. It was like a block of just the whitest snow I've ever seen. I had 0 feet of visibility and was like, where am I? I didn't know up, down, left, right. I was like, this is crazy. But it was only like a quarter mile. And then it clears out and 2 people are in a ditch. I'm still on the road somehow. I couldn't even see the physical road. And I was like, oh, that's good. And there was sun. And I was like, oh, that was horrifying.
I went through pretty much an identical situation yesterday. Yeah, coming home from the Boyne Market, and it was a whiteout from Boyne to Horton Bay, and then from Horton Bay to Charlevoix was complete sun. It was just weird. But it was like terrible road conditions the whole way. The slush was pulling me all over the place.
Yeah, we didn't have slush, but we had a ton of ice. It was wild. Anyway, it was like, 5 degrees here or whatever, and I'm sure it was as bad or worse up there. But yeah, so we are here. What are we drinking today?
I got the Saidama on, went with the Brita filtered water, so I'm getting this berry profile or whatever's hitting me, because the opposite tended to happen when I used the spring water, and I was getting the peachiness, and this one's a confusing one, and it's making me question everything, but I'm going to put that aside for a bit.
Yeah, that's fair. Did the Saidama and that El Salvador and 3 different brew methods yesterday, and all of them were fantastic. I don't know what we did to make like every brew perfect, but Evan and I crushed it, and we had very good coffee.
Well, it seems to me... Oh, yeah. It seems to me that both of those coffees are like peak right now, so it's doing you some favors by using them now.
Yeah, I still have probably 2 or 3 brews out of both of them. But yeah, anyway, I got the factory coffee cold brew. This is so good. I'm almost mad about it.
Is it just one coffee they use for that?
I actually don't know.
Or if is it like one variety? Do they sell other kinds?
I should have asked. Yeah, I can't know. It's just cold brew. So I don't know. I don't know if they're doing like their blend. I wonder if it's their Wild Child blend. But it could just be like a single origin coffee that they like. I don't know, but it tastes better than most cold brew I've gotten from a cafe. And it's certainly the best coffee I've ever had in a can. I like legitimately like it, and I usually only drink canned coffee as like I don't have anything else, and it's quick and easy, right? That's the only reason I've ever drank. I get these because I like them.
I'm curious about what it actually tastes like, because I went down to Cafe Maria and here in Charlevoix, the newer place, and their cold brew is super winey and super fruity and bright, and that is like kind of the opposite of the way I've always approached and appreciated cold brew. And when he was like, "Hey, you gotta try this," and he's using counterculture coffee, so super super high quality beans, and he made the choice to use some, I think it was iridescence or something, from them for cold brew, and it's like just like juice. It was incredible. It was very different.
Yeah, it's weird, but I'm a fan, so support local businesses.
Yeah.
Cool. So today, do you want to get into what you've been up to in shooting with David Sargent Coffee, or do you want to jump into all of my shenanigans, or do you want to go into the main topic?
I feel like almost every week lately it's been kind of a samey same for David Sargent Coffee photo stuff. I did a video that was a little different, although I've done some similar videos, but I took a friend out and we did some work with photography because she got a new camera by my recommendation. She picked up the A7C, got the 20 mil that I'm using to record this now, and she's learning it because she wants to do a lot of like travel stuff, but also intertwine it with her tea business, Jordan's Teas. She's awesome, and so she's learning. And so we went out and did a bunch of stuff. I did a bunch of photography, but also did a coffee anywhere type video, and then completely, I don't know if you watched this one, but completely failed and didn't get to make coffee. I'll leave it at that. It was It was pretty unfortunate. We left with no warm drink, but I had a ton of fun. I got some great pictures, I think, using the 50 mil. We had some incredible golden light cast over the dunes. Got just some awesome stuff to work with. That's kind of the highlight of my last week. I did do some stuff with the coffee, but yeah, it's kind of the same every week. Different ways to approach it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I like that you'd been sharing some photos of the wifey making coffee and whatnot,
Yeah,
and
that was a lot of
stuff
fun.
like that. It's cool. And
Oh,
yeah, I watched.
and that one reel, that was pretty fun to make.
Oh, the reel was quite nice, actually. Definitely some of your best short form work that I've seen so far.
Thanks.
And yeah, I watched that video while I was doing some work at my job, and it was good. It was always disappointing when you don't get to walk away with coffee in a coffee video, but
yeah, that sucked. Especially because I wasn't just the only one going to enjoy it. It was like somebody else was like waiting for my coffee. I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, that's funny. But right on, yeah. So still vibing on the 50 mil and
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah, I'd love to see it. I made a lot of moves this week.
Yeah. Yes.
I had accidentally leaked one because I take every opportunity to publicly tell Sony's social media that they need to do better.
You have to know that you're my only friend out of like 700 friends on Facebook who's going to comment on Sony Alpha whatever page it was.
But also, I don't look at Facebook, so I assume when I put something onto Facebook, nobody has saw it.
That's where I go wrong.
But anyway, so this week I sold my A7S III. And I have a video probably almost exactly 1 year ago when we first got the A7 IV at the shop when I was still at Jaegerworks. And I did a whole little walk out in the woods where I was talking about, does the A7 IV replace the A7S III or the A7R4 for me as a creator? And at the time, I was unwilling to compromise with how good photos are on the larger megapixel sensor of the A7R4 and compromise on having the really high ISO performance of the A7S III and 4K 120 and just, like virtually no rolling shutter to the degree that it like would ruin a shot or make me feel irritated or want to reshoot. And obviously recently I had talked about trading my A7R4 for an A7 IV finally, and that was to match the A7S III for the most part. And then we got all these rumors, right? And so kind of touching base with the ZVe1 rumors from last week, I don't know why I kept assuming it was closer to a ZVe1 than it was a ZVe10, but clearly it's going to be an interchangeable lens camera. And they have leaked some images of it which basically look like the ZVe10, which is fine. It's probably a little bigger. It's probably close to an A7C size, which is disappointing because this might mean that series is dead. And I don't want to talk about that yet, but I am sad about it because that revelation was rough. But it basically is an A7S III. And it's going to have some heat issues. It's definitely not going to be able to perform as well as an A7S III or an FX3, obviously, which has like almost no heat issues, right? So it's going to have some caveats, but it has all of the performance and it has the sensor and it has all of that. And the reason I had traded my A7R4 was literally because it was getting to the point where it was almost not valuable anymore monetarily. It's a hell of a camera. If I only had the A7R4, I would still be crushing photography. However, to kind of move along and stay relevant and present with the technology, how I like to, with the work that I do, I saw that I had to trade it. That was what happened this week with the A7S III. I had it as a feeler for weeks. I had a lot of messages. Hey, will you take 2600, etc., all this stuff. And I was like, no. And I kind of tip if you're trying to sell stuff used, if somebody hits you up with like a lower offer, I always tell them, well, I have 3 guys checking it out this weekend. Hey, there's a couple of guys interested. It's still available, but it's kind of first come, first serve. And right now, the lowest that I'm at with these guys is like 2,800, right? And I had it up for 2,900. I bought this camera for $34.99 with a Paybu card from B&H, so I paid $34.99, no taxes, and probably used it for almost 2 full years. I've definitely made over 15 grand with it through different freelance work, through actual work, etc. And I just sold it for $2,800. And peeling that Band-Aid off is kind of rough because like I really love that camera. I took that camera to the Philippines. I've done all of my projects for the last 2 years with that camera, but it's just a tool. And for me to give myself permission and money and everything necessary to buy the next greatest thing, I just have to be okay with a couple of months of running 2 A7 IVs, which are incredible cameras, right? So like, it's not like I'm losing anything. I'm losing a little bit of functionality, and I basically gave myself permission to make sure that if for some reason an A7S4 drops like late this year, or they come out with some other camera that's going to solve a problem that I have, I get to just buy it, right? Like that's in my savings account, and it's ready to go and ready to rock as soon as that camera comes out. So that's kind of my mentality and why I do that, how I did that, my, thoughts and feelings on upgrading gear and stuff. Obviously, I'm privileged enough to have the second camera and a camera at work and a third camera at work that's full spectrum modified. But like, that's where I'm at. That was the whole deal with selling my 7S3.
Obviously, I'm not super surprised because I saw you say something, but it's still kind of like a, wow, you actually did it type of thing. It's like you made that move. That's big respect, because I know how hard it was for you to see the dollar amounts drop on the prices for the A7R4. So I think it was the right thing to do. I just hope you don't have to wait too long.
Yeah. And like I said, like I haven't ran 120 FPS at work since I've been back in January.
Right.
I haven't needed it. It's really slow. I'm doing most of my stuff at 30 FPS still. Like 30p is fine. I'm not really doing a whole lot of speed rampy crazy stuff anymore like I used to. I used to be like kind of really into that thing. And I usually use slow-mo for B-roll stuff or like setups. But once I get into the action part of my job and what we do, I've been speed ramping that a lot less. It's a lot more just in real time kind of stuff, and better cutting for better storytelling for better, whatever. So it's been fine, and I think I'm gonna be okay. Like I said, I only took a $700 hit on it, and I made far more with that camera than I think any of my previous cameras. I probably have more photos and more video projects completed with that camera than my GH4, GH5, 7D, and the EOS R, like all put together, right?
So yeah, I mean, I feel that it's pretty much exactly the sentiments I had when I sold the D850 in all of my Nikon F-mount glass to put money towards pre-ordering and having the A7 IV. That's pretty much exactly how it went, and you know what? I don't regret it one bit. And I think as long as you don't have to wait more than a year, you're probably gonna, be glad you did that too.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I have 2 A7 IVs and A7S2.
You're not lacking for tools.
Yeah, it's all good. It is interesting though, like once I relinquished that, so I'm down to just a few lenses, and I have one body, and they're talking about the S1H2, like the next S1H, which I've already talked about really liking the S5 II, and now I'm at a position where the only gear I have left still has pretty good resale value and will probably sell in a weekend on the used market. Like I could probably just flip my entire Sony setup right now and be back on Lumix, or maybe the Z8 is everything, and I get a call from Nikon, and they're like, "Hey, we'd like you to try this out." We're not that big of a podcast. That was a joke. And you give it a run. But it was like a hurdle that I had to go through, because that was my first, I would say, like professional camera that I bought. I wouldn't say that the GH5 isn't, and I wouldn't say that the work I was doing before my 7S3 was not high quality professional work, but that was the move when I had two $3,500 bodies and like a lot of good glass, where I'm running G Masters, and like I was no longer just doing bang for the buck stuff. I was getting the tool that I wanted for the job kind of stuff, and approaching work that I wanted to do. So it was a big growth period for me, and it was interesting to close that book for practicality, and frankly, I just wasn't using the tool to the level that it required me to to own it. So I kicked around setting up a rental service and I'm still gonna probably do a rental thing, maybe through ShareGrid or something eventually. So I was tempted to keep it, but cash money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
I hope. So the next thing was I'm hoping that the eminent Z8, and I said this in the post, the Z8 and the S1H could be so good that either I switch or Sony actually goes, we have to release a new A7S. We refresh the R, or maybe it's an A12 or an A2, whatever they're gonna call it, and it's good enough for me to say, okay, well, it's got the 4-axis screen, it's got all the video features I need, it's got low rolling shutter, maybe it's a stack sensor or something. Even if it's more money, I'm willing to look at that if that's the case, because now I'm down to what I would say is like the first good prosumer body. I got rid of both of my pro bodies. I'm ready to pull the trigger on like the flagship if that's what it means.
It's
Right.
interesting you say that the Z8 might entice you after selling the A7S III. What kind of video features might you expect out of a Z8 that would have you switch?
Well, I mean, I think if Nikon wants to actually get in the hands of creators and be somebody in the market, that Z8 has to have at least full frame 4K 60 and
Sure, absolutely.
great autofocus. And I mean, if they just do a really good job and they make an enticing system, it's pretty easy to flip stuff for low amounts of money, and I'm in the position where I could toy with it if it was enticing enough. I just think it has to be every bit as good as any of the other flagships. I don't think
Yeah.
it has to like totally blow by them, but I think it has to be as good, and I think they're shooting for it. The S1H too. The S1H is an incredible camera even right now. I went to a Lumix release. I actually ended up dating a girl for a very short amount of time who was a model at the Lumix shoot that I went to. That's where I met her, and I went to go play with the S1H. They were basically letting people use it for like 15 minutes at a time, but everybody there was like pretty amateur. Like they weren't, and not like they're bad, but like they just weren't pros. They were just like there because there was like a local camera event. And I was talking to all the Lumix guys, and I basically had all my Canon lenses. I had like the 70 to 200 and everything on their EF adapter. And I was just shooting the hell out of that S1H. And I loved that camera because I was still like heavy on the GH5 at the time. I was like, man, I'm considering going to Sony, and I was telling them that, and I was like, this might be the camera to do it, but it was $4,000, right?
Yeah.
So, and the autofocus was what did it for me, was why I stayed to Sony, because like the photos were spectacular, that sensor's great, the 6K was awesome, the high speed was good. I love the menu system. I love the video features on Lumix
Interesting.
cameras. They're the best. I still maintain that Lumix menu video features, having shutter angle, having all of that stuff, it's so good. I miss my GH5 to death, but yeah.
So you're saying
And
you may set up a rental with the S1H2 and check out the AF and consider that system?
oh, absolutely. I was so close to pulling the trigger on this one H, and then because at the time I was doing more photography, I went with the A7R4 because the A7S3 wasn't out yet. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I finally, that was when I had the GH5 and the EOS R. So I was still running my 70 to 200 f2.8L2. And so I still had a very high quality photo camera, and I still had a very high quality video camera. And they were all using EF glass. And then I just said, okay, well, I'm going to sell this stuff off and I'm going to go to one system. And that system at the time, because I just needed pretty okay video and I needed like a really bitchin' photography camera, was the A7R4. And I didn't regret it at all.
No.
I mean, I didn't, it got
Sure
me
you
where
didn't.
where I am right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they had phase detect autofocus, man, I don't know that I would have batted an eye at getting that S1H. And I love the colors. Vlog rather, is just the best. But
Cool.
So we'll see,
Yeah.
because unfortunately I could see them making the S1H2 an 8K camera, and I don't want that big of a sensor because I know the rolling shutter performance is going to be bad. I'd rather them stay at 6.2K or whatever and just like absolutely crush it, or 5.9K, whatever they did, and do all the open gate stuff and all the things that I like, and then just like focus on that autofocus being good.
Sure.
Because I would go back to Lumix. You run like a glass on it and stuff, and it's so good, man. Like it's just such a freaking good system. So
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. And then I had gotten rid of my Zeiss and my Tamron 70 to 70, as I had said with Adorama, and they shipped me promptly a 20 to 70 f4, which is what I'm shooting on right now.
All right.
So I can do this whole super wide zoom and go in. What I really like about this lens is, one, the autofocus is incredibly fast, but the minimal focusing distance is insane.
Is it?
It's like 9 inches at 70 mil. Like, and that's from the sensor. So like you can just do like full on, if you just need like a macro shot of a product or something, it's on point.
That's awesome.
The thing is sick. So with the breathing comp, which I don't think it has bad breathing in it. I haven't tested it without breathing comp, but with the breathing comp and with the profile corrections that are built into the camera, this thing is basically flawless.
I mean, all the reviews pretty much said as much for what it is designed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, with because I'm not worried about any of the distortion or vignetting or anything, because I'm using the built-in profile corrections in the camera, and it's seemingly flawless. And it's like the size of the 35 mil 1.4, so they're both tiny. I could take both of those and not need anything unless I wanted something really long.
That's awesome.
It's quite good. I forgot that it had a 72 millimeter filter thread, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping that it was 67, but I have a dedicated 72 millimeter ND filter at least, so
sure,
that's not bad. But yeah. it's as good as G lens should be in 2023.
Very
sharp.
Cool.
Autofocus is great. F4 isn't really a problem because, as you know, I loved the 24 to 105 I got rid of recently.
Yeah.
Which is 2 trades away from why I have the 35 mil G Master, so like no regrets there. But yeah. So I'm rocking the 20 to 70, the 35 1.4, and the 70 to 200 2.8 And it's
nice kit.
Yeah, it's a perfect kit. I literally don't need anything, and it feels awesome.
So do you have any plans to work with the 20 to 2070 anytime soon?
Yeah, so I've already done a little bit of testing. I'm actually the main topic this week, which we haven't even gotten to. I'm using this lens to test a bunch of things, and so I'm going to be playing around with it, doing some video at work this week now that Zach's back at the shop. I'm going to be doing a ton of photo stuff just to get a bunch of basically, I don't know if I'm going to make a video about this for the YouTube channel yet or not, but I'm super interested in it. So I'll have some test shots to run a bunch of presets basically through, and yeah, it's fantastic. I don't know that I'm like super excited about its photography capabilities.
Sure.
I mean, it's just an f4, but it's great having 20 mil again. Like, this is so crucial. I forgot almost how much I missed it. Yeah, that's the best of both worlds for me right now. I basically got rid of the 2 lenses that I took to the Philippines and put it into one, kind of. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's pretty sick, man.
Fantastic. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, very long-winded, but
I knew it was going to be something. It's hard to predict with you anymore. So whatever it is, it's going to be good, and you'll make it work.
Yeah. It was a lot of moves and a lot of dopamine going through my brain as I was making all of this happen. Like I said,
every week, I just got to keep track of it. That's all.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now I think I'm settled until we get a new body. You know what I mean? So.
All right, you all heard that.
Unless, yeah. I mean, I still have my eye on the 50. We'll see if I do it. Probably not anytime soon. I mean, it's still $1,400 or $1,300 or whatever.
You think you still want to run it and come up?
Yeah, I still want to do that. I still want to make content about it, but
cool.
That's arguably an insignificant amount of money for me to play around with a lens. So
yeah,
because that's like my primary hobby is.
I still think that'll be fun to do.
Yeah, it'll be great. Getting into the primary topic I wanted to talk about today. I purposely withheld this because I'm going to present to you the thread on Twitter that kind of made me realize this, and then my initial trials and my experiments with it. Okay, so March 14th, Tyler Stallman, shout out Tyler Stallman again, as though like he's one of the 5 people I reference every week, but he used ChatGPT 4 to generate a Kodak Portra 400 film emulation preset. So he asked, let's see if he has the prompt here. I can't remember. Oh boy. It does not look like he shows what his prompt was. So basically, he says, I'm looking to do a Portra 400 film stock emulation. And ChatGPT says, well, and goes right into, first you want to start with your base corrections, and it tells you on the sliders plus and negative how much you want to do for that. Then it says, then go to HSL, and for hue you want +5 red, -5 oranges, -10 yellows, etc. And it goes through the whole thing, right? And he goes another step. He throws the preset that he made with, I think, does he say that he added but clearly has the right target? Okay, so he just took it and he put it on his store for free download. So you could try it and see what you think, right? And it's not bad. I won't say that it's like mind-blowing or whatever, right? This information is out there. This is Adobe Lightroom. This is Portra 400. This is how maybe even Fuji Weekly does it on their film simulations. There's information for a bot like this to dig up some stuff and spit out something reasonable. So it's like, okay. So, hello, ChatGPT 4. I would like you to develop a Fujifilm Superia Extra 400 film stock, right? And it spits out the same kind of thing. It was a very detailed, this is what I would do to do it. And if you're not familiar with like Superia Extra 400, it's a very basic kind of neutral, clean consumer film. It's not that gnarly. It's not like it has a bunch of character or whatever. And I was like, okay, so I tried it and I looked at it and I was like, this isn't far-fetched, but it's kind of basic. It's not as surprising as you might see. And, he had like some tone curve adjustments, and it kind of tells you like, you could try this, you do a slight S curve and for your highlights, whatever. But it is smart enough to say like, this will change depending on like your photo and stuff. So these are the things that you should look at when you're trying to emulate Portra 400, etc. I was like, okay, so then I tried CineStill 800T, where at this point it said, so you want to lean warm because 800T CineStill has like a warmer tone to it. And it wasn't quite as detailed, but I still think it hit the mark for like the primary things. And so the next thing I tried was like, okay, so a Lightroom preset's relatively easy. What if I ask it to do a LUT? And a LUT isn't as easy as making a preset, right? You got to go through and do a bunch of stuff. And naturally, it struggled. But then I said, so what do I do if I want to get a like John Wick 3 look to my video? And, it started to dictate some things that you could do to match that color, the look, the tones, like maybe the tones that you want to focus on in the highlights and the shadows to make what looks like a John Wick 3 thing. So I tried similar stuff, and it literally ended up being a little less interesting kind of the more I go down the rabbit hole. The more times I kind of ask it, what about a look for like this movie or something out of left field, and it kind of tells you the same stuff. So it went from being incredibly exciting to going, okay, maybe it's just pulling from a little bit of information and it's actually not that enticing, right?
If I'll interject here, I have played with... Yeah, sure. It is very interesting. And I want to see that explored more, because all that's essentially doing, from what I can understand right here, right now, is that it's taking information that's out there, kind of rewiring it in a format that's easy to see. Because I'm sure if you go to Google and just look up, what can I do in Lightroom to make my images look like such and such, you'll get different versions that you can kind of pull together. And what this is doing is kind of taking aspects of all of them and trying to figure out what you really want.
Well, it's consolidating that info.
Yeah. And then you can ask it multiple times and it'll try to give you the same format, right?
And then it's just adding syntax to make it seem like it's talking to you through it, right?
Right. So my experience, excuse me if I interrupt, but my experience using ChatGPT 3, I've played with it a little bit, just like writing like like scripts and stuff just to have fun with it. And when I started the conversation, its context kind of bases itself about how you start the conversation.
Yep.
I asked it to write me a script about Shrek meeting up with Austin Powers, right? Like this weirdo combination thing. And then I tried to go off topic a little bit over and over, like over the course of like 10 or 20 minutes talking back and forth with it. And it always kind of tried to pull back Shrek and Austin Powers into totally different things. It leaned a little bit too much on the initial context. So I'm not sure if that's probably what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Talking about that.
So I would go into new chats. Every time I tried either a different film stock or a different look, I just started. So I still have ChatGPT 4 open with all of my different chats on it. And so I wouldn't just keep asking it in the same little sandbox.
Interesting. Okay.
I purposefully didn't do that because, again, I agree. I think it's gonna dumb itself down, or it's gonna introduce more error because you're going to introduce more error, giving it context that is no longer necessary for like what you're talking about. Again, my stance on like ChatGPT versions of AI is that it's only as good as the inputs that you put into it. If you're a dipshit, then like it's not that useful. Like it's there was another tweet that I saw. I should have saved that for today, but they were like it was something like ChatGPT start this conversation or whatever, like you're a boy trapped in a well. And then it was like ChatGPT, help, I'm a boy trapped in a well. And then like the tech bro is like, oh my God, it's crazy, it's gonna take over. And it's like, yeah, man. That's how I feel about it. I think it's really just syntax based like Google search, which I'm not saying that this isn't super wild. It's the very next version of how awesome Google was. But I'm just trying to still wrap my head around how it's consolidating information and putting it in a box. So I would say Tyler Stallman using Portra 400 is either he got really lucky, or Portra 400 is so freaking like popular that ChatGPT was able to pull enough information together to make something that actually did look like Portra 400. I think the Cinestill one was kind of me being cheeky because you can't really match Cinestill because it's the way the process works, without getting into technical information, is it's a different type of process or something. They do something to the film. I think it's like movie film or something like that, that basically adds all these like halations in a way that you couldn't just emulate if you didn't actually have either the chemical or some type of like filter or something. Like you can't just in Lightroom make it look like Cinestill. It's impossible.
Right.
But you can get the tones and stuff of Cinestill, which is what it tried to do. But it also didn't tell me that without having that actual process, you're not going to be able to match the halations and stuff without getting pretty heavy into like either Photoshop or using on the lens filters, right? So Tyler Stallman, since AI kind of popped off in the last year, has had it in rotation on his podcast and his conversations in social media a lot, because I think he's trying to approach how are these tools going to change how we do things, and he's getting in front of it before, honestly, way before it's even a problem or taking people's jobs or something like that. He's publicly always working around how it's affecting what we do. So I really appreciate that, and it was kind of a fun experiment to jump in and piggyback off of it, because it's almost super impressive.
Yeah, almost. And let me give you an example I just did right now. So I have Bing Chat. I have access to that. It took me about a week or so, and I just did what you're talking about, how to edit like Portra 400. And I had to prompt it a few times in different ways. I had to ask it what can I do to edit my images like Portra 400. It searched how to edit like Portra 400, how to edit digital images like Portra 400, and then it just basically generally linked me to a YouTube video, how to edit in Lightroom like vintage film, and then I had to ask it, be specific about the development tab in Lightroom for me. And then it learned what the development tab in Lightroom did, and then I asked it, now tell me how to edit like Portra 400 with that. Now this is where the infancy of this technology is showing, because I think there's a whole lot more room to grow, because what it then told me was, choose a photo you want to edit, adjust the exposure, blah, 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 to look like Portrait 400. Adjust the tone curve to match the tonal range to look like Portrait 400. So it's not telling me what to do, where what Tyler's did seems a little more helpful. I think I have more opportunity to play with this to see if it can dig further, because I know that it can read transcriptions of videos to get this information. But I wanted to show you just like, yes, this is the infancy of this right now.
I got very similar results to that in one of my chats asking for another film stock with ChatGPT 4.
Yeah.
Which I am assuming Bing's ChatGPT is working off of 3.5, 4. It's probably pretty similar. Yeah. It's just, again, the context for Bing's chat is prompted differently. Yeah. The tool is incredible. I think the syntax is helpful to figure out how you want to ask the question. Mm-hmm. Because that gives you a better understanding of what you're actually looking for. I think that's really important. I think as a tool, that's remarkable. Because if you're just staring at a Google box that says, what are you looking for? And you're like, I don't know, I'm looking for like this. And it spits out just a bunch of links.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
It's not.
I know people that don't even like Google things anymore. Kids, this blows my mind. Young people search TikTok like Google.
I know. It's wild.
And when I found that out, I was like, what do you mean?
Well, isn't also YouTube like the biggest search engine in the world? Like these platforms are there for that too.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm entering boomer mode because I still open Chrome, and if you just use the address bar, maybe if you're not familiar with how Internet Explorer used to work, the address bar was not a search engine, and if you typed in just normal it would just go, what are you talking about?
It broke.
Yeah, it's like, can you www this for me, because error 404 page not found.
We are in the transition of Google, the way it's used now, being totally irrelevant.
Yeah, and that's why it's neat, because obviously Google's going to have to do something about this.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on the horizon.
Microsoft getting this ahead of this ChatGPT thing is huge, because I've been using it as well, and to be able to ask it even I just don't want to sit here and I could search for this page and that page and cross-reference them both and find my answer. It can just do that for you.
Not only can it consolidate information you can go find yourself, but the mathematics I've made it do is wild. Stuff like, I got super specific. You will never find this question online if you go and ask for it. But if you dropped three very specific Sony lenses from the top of the Empire State Building with the cross winds going from the west to the east at a certain speed, and it knows the weights of the lenses, and it knows the force of gravity. It tells me what lenses hit the ground first and why, it does. It's crazy.
To be clear of what he was just saying, David didn't have to tell it what the weight of the lenses are. It will just fetch that info because it's readily available. And it tells you what it's doing.
It tells you, I'm going to search for this information. I'm finding the dimensions. I'm finding the weights. This is what is going to happen. And it like in math class in high school, prove your work, it does that. So Now, you can't always trust it. Sometimes you have to ask it to try again. If you think this doesn't sound quite right, you can make it fail. But sometimes it's like, okay, I know that I'm not going to know the answer. So sometimes I asked it to do it a couple of times. But almost every time when it came to the mathematics, when it got the dimensions right from the source, it was within an extremely minimal margin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a graphing calculator, the good old TI-84, is going to fail if you give it bad inputs too.
Right, exactly.
And so there's a margin for error in all of these calculatory things. I don't know if calculatory is a word, but it sounded good at the time. And but yeah, so again, I'm definitely not this is the craziest thing ever, but it is literally the start of the next big
No, I'm kind of there.
Technology.
I think it's the craziest thing ever. This is when Google popped up, you had to go to a library basically before Google. Now we have this information. It's so much faster than Google, and that was so hard to comprehend forever. Google was fast, right?
But so if I'm being honest with that experience, I'm only 30 years old, but I've been on the internet way too long. And I can tell you right now, I remember getting into that stuff and it didn't blow my mind. Things on the early internet didn't blow my mind. It was I found it and was this is really interesting.
Right.
Okay. So, and that's how I feel about it right now. So not that it's not an incredible technological leap. It's the next big thing. It really is. To say it's not is insane. And it's reasonable to dislike tech bros, like that tweet that I talked about. That it's annoying. I am skeptical when anybody wants to have a conversation about ChatGPT with me. I'm like, okay, here we go, because it's like divisive for me only because people think it's like freaking Skynet, and it's so far from like autonomous, like the movie Her, where like Alan Watts and Scarlett Johansson's character is going to go into the ether off of their OS and you can't use your computer anymore. It's so far from that. It's just really high level calculations. And then it's added human syntax so you can interact with it better. Like it's an interface with a better Google. That's all it is. And that's not to say that that's not super incredible. It's not scary, and it's definitely not doomsday tech.
No, I don't feel that way. I just feel excited about the potential for quick information gathering.
Oh, dude, it's a freaking...
It's always been that way.
Yeah, it's so sick.
It is
I agree that it's so sick, but I want people to know why it's so sick. That it's like it is doing a lot of consolidation and calculation for... It's a great tool. It's an excellent tool.
Now, in the context of TikTok and YouTube being the biggest search engines out there right now, do you think there is an opportunity for them, for both of those platforms, to integrate these AI tools in how people search on video platforms?
Yes, but I don't know how. Right? Like I'm not smart enough.
Well, the video, the transcription, the way that ChatGPT right now can read transcriptions of videos. Right. I don't think YouTube takes advantage of that in their own search tools. I don't think that if you search something, let's say you search for a very specific thing that someone says in a video but is nowhere in like a description box or in a title, I think there's room for AI to go in and do something like that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree with that. I just there's motivations behind how you get fed what you get fed when you search.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not advantageous to have machine learning for YouTube because they probably want more control over what's actually being output. And
100%.
You relinquish a lot of that with ChatGPT. That's what's really interesting is like if I'm using Bing like ChatGPT search, like do I trust it if like I don't know that it's integrating, it's like prioritizing sponsored like links first. Mm-hmm. So like maybe it's actually gonna very convincingly feed me, you know, not fake news or whatever, but like, you know, kind of paid for bought information where they're like, this is the correct stuff. Depending on context and what the topic is, I guess. But like if it's objective is objective, but like
stealthy advertising and stuff like that is going to be a big old rabbit hole. I don't think we even have time for today, but I do think there's opportunity for especially YouTube because they've got the tools and the money and everything right now to develop this. Like if you just get real specific about it and put something in quotations in YouTube, kind of like the way we've done in Google before to try and find very specific things on the internet. I think like reading transcriptions and trying to find this person said this and I need to refer back to that moment. I think Google has an opportunity on their hands to integrate some stuff like that.
It would be huge. Like, so Google's already kind of doing something similar, at least with, if you like, say if you're trying to look for I'm trying to do something in After Effects, it already does a really good job at like feeding you a video first and then saying this is like the key moments of that video.
Yes.
So they're close. It's like utilizing that idea and then like full on ChatGPT like digging through the thing. We just have to assume that YouTube would either need to find a way that it benefits them greatly, or they have to begin to actually care about their audience, because they don't necessarily care about us, right? Like they care about the bottom end and a lot of stuff, and as long as what they do actually helps with, you know, advertisers well-being and everything, that's how we'll get the features. I mean, you had an experience where you wanted to die because their shorts editor is absolutely abysmal.
It's awful.
So like again, you have to assume that they actually care about what's helpful to the end user in a way that may or may not, I guess. It would have to benefit them and their advertisers. But the technology's there. They're going to do that. I'm sure they're already working on it to a degree. Like I said, the key points thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other specific scenarios too that I'm not thinking of, but that's the first one that popped in my head.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
if you're giving me an in, I'm going to tell people about this little shorts problem I have. Okay, when I'm posting to Instagram Reels and when I'm posting to TikTok, because this is just basically necessary at this point, um, I like to try to find trending audio to stick onto the videos to help
Right.
algorithmically for the video to perform well. This is just basic stuff we all do basically at this point. And in that process, I like to pick a song and then try to balance the volume against the actual original audio in the video. This is extremely basic functionality you would expect, right? Instagram, you can do this. TikTok, you can do this. TikTok actually kind of blows my mind for how many features they provide to create on that platform. It's pretty powerful. Aside from that, doing so on YouTube is super inconsistent. Sometimes, like 20% of the time, when I pick audio to go into, when I pick a song from their library, you don't always get the option to adjust volume at all. It is extremely strange. Um, and then the like 15-second thing versus the 60-second thing. Sometimes you can use music for only 15 seconds of the whole video if you go 60 seconds for a short. It is really confusing, but just like the inconsistent availability of an option, as simple as slide your volumes is so it infuriated me. You know that when I messaged you about that, I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous for a company like Google and YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I haven't done a whole lot of TikTok, but yeah, they give you like literally just it's so visual. It's two sliders in Instagram where this is your audio, this is the music,
And that's
that
all you
added.
need.
And yeah, it's like it seems painfully simple, like to not have that as like the very first option when you choose to use built-in audio from YouTube is insane.
And let me be clear, I went like, the boomer I am, I went to Google. How do you change volume on YouTube Shorts? And I got different answers. I got people from all over the world showing you, the walkthrough about exactly how to, instead of going upload, go to create a short and do this and that. And sometimes the option will be there most of the time. And if it's not, maybe you should update your app. It's like, I've done all these things and it's just not working. I don't know if that YouTube is just on a quick update cycle for how they want shorts to work and look, but not having a volume slider is like the stupidest thing I could ever think of when you're trying to upload a video and maybe you want some music involved. It's like, come on, YouTube. Is this a licensing issue? Is it like the creators of the music don't want other audio interfere? It's like, what is happening? Actually,
Yeah.
It's making me mad just talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. I just I'm so bad about social media still that I would rather have a track edited into a thing. I'm like,
I can't
don't
wait
care.
till you start digging into the shorts, man. You're gonna see this, and it's gonna be maddening.
No, because the thing is, I don't care about trending audio and stuff because I just make the thing the way it is, and I'm gonna edit it completely in my NLE, and then I'm not gonna touch it in the editor. I hate adding stuff in Instagram.
I feel you.
Short editor. So I'm gonna keep uploading the way I do, and damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'll probably fall into obscurity and before I even make it on these platforms.
I almost envy that.
I'm okay with it. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to kind of let people know. And if you, as a listener, have like this secret way, please leave a comment if you're on YouTube or reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at _David Sargent, coffee or David Sargent. Let me know what you're doing to get that volume slider to work on YouTube Shorts. I'd love to know.
He's pleading.
Please
help him. Yeah, I mean it is quite the stupid thing because so I'll link it if I can. I don't even know how easy it is to link that kind of stuff from Instagram Reels onto YouTube and stuff, but I'll put it in the show notes because I liked the reel that we're referring to.
Oh yeah.
But so that's that for the AI. That's that for all the gear. I think I don't really have a whole lot of rumors or anything this week, thankfully. But I wanted to touch base on two things I already alluded to in this episode to finish this off, which was the painful realization that they're going to make a ZVe1 that essentially is an A7S III. I fear that the ZV line will eat the A7C line.
I also feel like it's too much compromise, right?
I mean, I agree that it's too much compromise, but they have the ZVe1F, the ZVe1, and the ZVe10 on the APS-C line. So like, I wonder if like the A7C will just turn into a version of a full frame ZV camera or something. But what I don't like about it is it almost brings it too towards the consumer side of
Oh,
cameras.
absolutely, it does.
And I'm not willing to run something like that. Like I don't know that. I mean, if you take away a joystick even off of a camera, I am done with you. Like I'm a very simple man, and like, and it almost brings me back to being like full boomer. Like if I don't have the 3 dials to do ISO, shutter, and aperture, I don't know that I can use your camera.
The A7C is a little bit tough to learn with that because you only have one basically.
Yeah. Which is not the worst because now at least all 3 of my lenses have aperture rings, but so I can
Right.
do shutter on one and then just run ISO through a button. I can handle that, but
Mm-hmm.
but man,
The rotational wheel of the direction pad helps too. So that's how
that's
get
how I do
away with
ISO. So yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't want the ZVe1 to eat the A7C.
I don't think anybody does.
Well, I know some people really like the A7C, but I still don't hear about it. YouTuber creators don't really use it because it's just long in the tooth enough that like, why would they? If they're YouTube creators, they kind of go to the higher end or to the what is it, the FX30? It looks like I've been seeing a lot of, and so that's kind of how I'm gauging because I follow a big majority of like the Sony content creators, and that's kind of how I base if those guys are using certain things. I feel like Sony's probably going to stick to that ecosystem because those are the guys that they're probably looking to see how things like if a travel guy isn't using an A7C, and maybe they did when it was like a popular camera. I hope they did, but once the A7 IV came out, any of the serious content creators probably got rid of the A7C for that, and then a lot of them played with the ZVe10, which a lot of them do. That's their like, I need a very compact, video capable.
You guys know I was super close. I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and so was I. Right when I was potentially going to Mexico and South America, I was like, oh, maybe I'd get that because it's real small.
Yes,
but I don't know. I just like now that I have money burning a hole in my bank account. I'm curious to see if they're going to give us an A7C2 that's and if they are, is it just going to be an A7 IV? And my other caveat is they're not equally supporting camera lines, which is one of the reasons I got rid of the A7S3 because I'm using the A7 IV because of breathing compensation and because of these simple things that my camera should have had that we've beaten to death already. But what happens to the A7C2 if it's just an A7 IV on arrival? Does it have like a 8 to 14 month lifespan and then like it just falls into obscurity because the A7S4 or something comes out and nobody cares again? Or is it going to be supported with all of the technology? Is it going to get technology that now my A7 IV doesn't have?
I mean, I think we have enough just trending information to know the answer to that. I don't know what's in store. None of us really do right at this moment. There's a lot of opportunity for them, but I do feel like that's too much compromise for this to be a ZV and kill the A7S line. I feel like that makes the difference too great between like the FX line and what's available in the consumer end versus what's available in the pro end. I would hate to see it, and I think just about everyone else would, and I don't see the logic in it right now.
Yeah. I want to clarify. I think you might have misspoke. You said to kill the A7S line. I don't think it's going to kill the A7S line, but did you mean the A7C line?
Well, no. Are you? Maybe I have misunderstood this entire conversation. Do you think that if what we're talking about here is a ZV camera, that they wouldn't then go ahead and make an A7S4?
No, I think that they might not make an A7C2.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I was
like. Sorry, yeah. I don't think that the S series necessarily is in danger at all, but I think that like we might not see a refresh of the A7C because it's a random camera. It was like a one-off.
Yeah.
And I don't know on the back end if the A7C was literally a camera designed to test a smaller body full frame and to use available parts that they had, because it was a bunch of available parts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it could have just been like, okay, that's going to be the one rando, and
Right.
now we're going to live off of this ZV ecosystem because now it's in both full frame and APS-C.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot at play. It's really hard to kind of decipher it all and make predictions because it's Sony and you just don't know sometimes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the hope is that obviously they make an A7S4. Please do that.
Yeah, of course.
And there's light rumors on that, but I was kind of hopeful for, but now I'm starting to realize that maybe an A7C2 is just like, if it's just going to be an A7 IV, like, don't even bother.
Yeah, it's tough. The A7 IV is an amazing camera, and I don't think I would be super compelled to buy an A7C2 if it was that camera, but just a little bit smaller with the viewfinder chopped off the top. I don't know. I mean, it would have to be a lot cheaper, and I don't think they can really make it a lot cheaper.
Right. Or it's going to be one of those things where it's like going to get another piece of technology that they don't feed into the other cameras with firmware, which is so frustrating. I would rather you not introduce another camera and then just like make the line move forward and give us firmware that to support our current cameras than to just like scatterblast some random shit. Because like the fact that the A1 and the A7S III didn't get some of these features is nuts. I have a buddy who I didn't actually realize he was running an A1, and I was like, damn, you're like primarily using an A1 and an FX3. It's like, how does that feel? Because both of those cameras still haven't gotten, like, the reason I'm using A7 IVs is breathing compensation, and I use focus mapping, and, you know.
Yeah, that's tough. And you pretty much, if you're trying to resell those cameras now, you have a very small market of people who are interested in that who don't care about breathing comp. It's probably pretty tough to live in that space right now.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I'm hopeful that Sony makes some good plays, and I'm hopeful that, you know, like I said earlier, Nikon and Panasonic and all these guys really put a fire under their ass to deliver some good stuff for the consumer. They're killing it with lenses right now, I think, and I think they're still in their era. You know, I'd call it the Sony era still. I'd say the Canon era was like 2017.
But it does feel like the tides are turning a little bit, right? Like Nikon's about to make some moves, and it seems like Sony might have to step back for a minute just to respond.
Yeah, or they're on it. You know what I mean? There has been like a light rumor that there could be an A7S4 at the end of the year, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if that comes to fruition, that will be that'll just make an amazing year for everybody into cameras, right?
Yeah.
What options? The Z8 drops and it's amazing. A7S4, it's gonna be amazing, right? What a great year it would be.
Yeah, S1H2, everything. Yeah,
of course.
And then the last one is, I don't know if you saw this one, but it sounds like the Z8 is supposed to be similarly sized to a D850, just a little thinner, obviously. And it's just that little added data point for me to go, I really think they're going to try and nail where the D850 sat in their lineup, which was their, like, I don't care about their D6 and 5. The D850 was like the flagship, dankest Nikon camera that they ever made in the DSLR realm.
Yeah.
It was their best camera.
I consider it to this day, and I know I'm biased, but the best DSLR of all time. That's just where I'm at with that.
Sure. I can't disagree with that. I think it was just at the, I would, so for my context, I was a Canon shooter. I would hold the D850 closer to the 1DX Mark II than I would the 5D Mark IV.
Interesting.
So, like, as far as like being basically their flagship, right? Like, if I was going to jump into a Nikon, like, it was the D850 all day long.
Some of the features the D850 had made the D5 seem like not worth $5,000 or $6,000, right? It just wasn't. Yeah, you want some speed, you get the 1D for sports. Basically, that's about it.
Yeah. It's wild stuff. So I need them to succeed. I know that sounds so crazy because I really don't give a shit about Nikon, but like we need basically, it's like needing Godzilla, right? Like you have these monsters like ravaging Tokyo, and like the only thing that can save you is a third giant monster to kill the other monsters, because the consumers need that. And I'm at like the precipice of like the next big technological jump in consumer and prosumer and content creating cameras is soon.
Yeah.
We're coming off of 2 years of a little bumps. We're
Yeah.
getting to little bumps. I want to see a big bump again. I want some excitement. It's clear after this episode I'm an absolute gear hound. So
I think it's pretty fair. I mean, we have a lot to look forward to, I think.
yeah, it's pretty exciting. So this week, what do you have in the docket?
Man, not a whole lot. I've got a lot of roasting to do because yesterday's market went really well again. We actually got pretty lucky because not only was it the day after St. Patrick's Day, and I don't really drink, but also it was terrible, terrible weather. So many vendors were out, leaving a lot of customers fewer options, unfortunately for them, but many of them bought coffee for me. So I am low on stock and I got to be roasting a lot. So I don't know that I'm going to have a ton of time to play with the camera this week. I'm sure I'm going to fit it in somehow, some way. But yeah, I'll be busy making coffee.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I got Zach back, so I'll be doing a lot of content for work. But like I said, I'm going to be playing around more with the film emulations via ChatGPT, and I'm playing with some other ideas on how I can utilize it as a tool to make better stuff and interesting stuff.
Sure.
So as I explore that, I guess I'll see what happens. But with the 20 to 70 and stuff, we'll have a little bit to say after this week with it because I'll probably shoot it a lot.
Yeah, I want to see some stuff you make with it.
For sure. Anyway, if you're still listening, we appreciate you. We're about hitting the hour mark. We just nailed it again. We're hour-long Andes. It's like perfect. So, leave us a message. What do you think about ChatGPT? Are you using it like crazy? Do you hate it? Do you think tech bros are goobers and it's not a big deal at all? Do you even care? Is it so far off your radar that you're like, dude, I'm just going to Google stuff and I go outside because I'm not a nerd? I envy you if you just go outside. I'm working on it. But yeah, any final words from you, David?
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening, leave us a review on Spotify. If you're on the YouTube channel, we love you. Drop a comment below. Let's have a discussion. Find our socials and get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, awesome. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.